Hey guys, what's going on? I'm gonna fuck with this for a while. You know how it goes. Okay. I hate that I have the most fucked up light. God damn it. It's like giving me a tutorial thing. And then this span mode. And I think you guys would rather see more of me. So, I don't know. So basically the fan's all fucked up and it'll be kind of loud. But I'm just going to have to turn it on. So basically, let me fucking flip the switch. So basically, it rattles, and the little chain thing fell off of it. But I don't think I was hoping I could get away with like worse lighting, I guess. But I kind of don't think so. So we're gonna go ahead and just do it like this way, and then I'll adjust it from there. So yeah, you know, we're probably gonna hear maybe some fan rattling, but hey, I mean, can't have you guys like completely in the dark on me, right? Sorry, it looks all blurry and shit. Holy crap, would I love to have some new, equipment stuff, but, oh, now you can't see most of my, How's that? Almost. Yeah, of course, I am the, whole production crew. I won't fuck with it too much more, just enough. And then like putting it between the rocks. So we're kind of hoping that maybe just the height adjustment here. So yeah, if I apologize for the rattling, but let me know if you can hear me. I'm on, and I have a normal ass house filled with my family members' belongings, and that's okay. You know what? I think that maybe the lighting is just as long as it's decent. And then I know it'll take a while for people to get on, but yeah. Anyway, so we're on. I don't want to have you guys like in that much darkness, really. So what's going on? What am I? It's about 20 minutes late, but everybody's having pretty bad allergies. Mine are kind of worse in the earlier springtime. So like, the first kinds of signs of life. I don't know. That's just kind of how it goes for me. But yeah, I just here to hang out though for a good, let's say maybe a little bit over an hour and a half. And I want to get in one more live stream before my kids are home with me for the summer, and then let me think. I think we'll either go 1 or 2 months where I don't do a live stream in the summer. But I'll have a lot of I'm going to try and film a lot. I did go to the cemetery, so I halfway like film it, and then I also like stop take a lot of pictures. So I love angels, and so you could tell some of obviously there's a lot of gravestones like where it's mass produced and just that kind of idea. But it's like the same manufacturer. But in the 1800s, they would order out of a catalog and kind of idea. But yeah, I did that, and so I filmed some of it, and then I just get pictures of different things that I'm interested in. So I'm going through those, and I'm gonna, we're just gonna edit those videos because the cemetery that I go to most frequently, this kind of is close, and it's kind of a nice to go get exercise close by, kind of quick fix. Be in nature, be near the cemetery. It's not like abandoned or anything. I mean, there's definitely, every time I go, I've seen at least one service going on, and sometimes in the winter months it can be moderately traffic, but there's definitely people who are going and paying respects. I mean, every time every time I've gone to this particular cemetery, there's always been someone that busts out with the lawn chair, like those like 80s or 90s styles, like like they're like plastic lawn chairs, kind of poolside, but not long ways. They're sort of the seated chair kind of one. Like they're just, reading a book next to their spouse, or probably just perhaps they're sunbathing. I suspect that not everybody who goes there knows someone there, But yeah, so, and it's gonna get too hot pretty soon to even go in the morning. So they'll, besides my kids being out of school, it's just not something you would want to do. I mean, hey, great reminder to all you folks out there. Every year, at least somebody is on the news for unfortunately passing away at the Grand Canyon because they'll decide to do some kind of hike that's at least moderate, and they do it like June, July, August. And that's just very, very dangerous. It is, I don't know. I was going to kind of rate it compared to some other risky activity, but like, it's just, it depends. The Grand Canyon has, some parts of it are hotter than others, but it can go to being kind of nice at night, like in the summer, where, because it depends on the monsoons. In the monsoon, if it's just rained or it's incoming, it'll be kind of cooler at night. But then it's a really, like, it's a relief from the day. Like that's basically how us folks out here feel. But go from just kind of being pleasant, maybe you could describe that way, to during the day it's just fatal. Very easily. Especially compounded by things like going alone. But even so, people have perished in groups from heat stroke, heat exhaustion. So yeah, you understand that just because it's like you're not like dying during the nighttime, it still gets very, very hot and chalking upwards 110 degrees. You just should not be out there no matter what kind of water you have, right? And it's just, temperature. So a survival at its most basic is like temperature determined anyway. So yeah, don't go hiking in the Grand Canyon June, July, August. Any other months would be okay, but same idea with the cemeteries. I know there's lots of different small ones out there I've been to, but yeah, I'm not going to do that. When I go, I spend a long time, and I count it as my workout. Kick my shoes off, and I ground myself at the end. It just kind of ensures that nothing attaches to me. And then I get my electrons and, can do that all in one stop. 2 birds with one stone. Like when I go to arts and crafts stores, and I'll see maybe they have, those little plastic flowers, like that they have it dollar kind. There's no dollar shit around anymore, but those stores are still around. That around. You pick those up. I'm like, my kids will get something, and I'll throw a few of those in there. I take them to the cemetery. just give them out when I feel the time is right. I go with a bag and check everybody. I also pick up garbage and upright, overturned, flower vases. Most commonly, they're like the plastic ones where it's like, especially if the tombstone is like flat, and then it'll have like sometimes it'll have a circular thing where you could screw a flower vase in. And, sometimes those fall out or they get knocked out by equipment. And so I'll just upright it. If something looks like it's just been scattered, and I'll pick stuff up, like litter. So I bring just a standard garbage bag. And I don't know, like that's my way of really respecting the dead. So they're respecting them is pretty important to me. And that's how I do that. But I'm also just realizing, this is definitely like, where I'm kind of chilling out on going, because I'll have to wait till, probably September, maybe October. And that just depends on the temperature. If I can get like a late monsoon day in or something like that. But that's just, I love it. But I'm glad to be here for a live stream. I got everybody in bed, and it's a chore in itself. So, what's up? How are you doing? Okay, I saw you have a new milestone in a number of subscribers that you have. So, how do you say your username? Saniz? I'm not really sure, but I don't know if it was I don't remember if it was like 1,000 subscribers that you hit, but congratulations. I mean, I really love seeing your channel and stuff. And oh gosh, I'm really not much of a makeup person, but I love performing arts. And I don't know, I guess that's kind of like the whole angle of hanging out with ghosts. I like people. I like to observe them. I don't know. Always, I like to take pictures, act. So I think that'd be fun to kind of incorporate that into a few things I do, even though I don't wear makeup like, normal life. I think that's fun to play around and stuff. But, the word sun is okay. Okay, so sun is that like a way closer? I hope so. But yeah, it's really cool to be on with you guys. I don't remember. I think maybe it might have been somewhere like January where I was on last time. So it's good to be here, and we'll definitely get at least one more in. Tell me what's going on with you guys or what you want to talk about. I got my tarot cards, and then I usually put so if there's a card I want to meditate on, or that I'm studying, that I want to present maybe to you guys, I put it in my little witch bag. It's got ghost, and it's got a Ouija board. It says like magic poison. I like cute goth stuff, so I'm definitely like half hippie, half like rainbows at cemeteries, and so that's kind of the flavor, if you could, me. But I like to just put that in there so I can, just kind of separate it and focus. It helps me to kind of put it in that different space, focus on it. I do have a few more cards to do on that, but I have filmed a couple that I'm going to have to get in editing mode. But I have other stuff to do anyway, online. So yeah. I got this shirt, okay, at a a boutique shop, and it's a vintage 60s shirt. So it's I think it's made of polyester and stuff, but it's got all the psychedelic. It's different flowers, and then some of it's different shapes that you're could be leaves, is whatever, but it's all these different colors, and it's so cool. And whatever. I love it. So I have a few outfits like that where, I like the vintage stuff for sure. I mean, I also like, retro 50s, but probably, psychedelia is like, definitely an interest for sure. But just not just like, I mean, like from the music to the clothing, to like, hey man, it's groovy and everybody take time to relax and chill, and it's like I like that whole sentiment. Yeah, definitely. I like the whole 60s. I definitely especially like when I was in my earlier 20s, I definitely tried to, I don't know if you want to call it restart, like a, whole hippie thing, but I definitely, basically smoking some grass. I still smoke pot, but that was all new to me and stuff. And I stopped wearing bras. I mean, I will like now if I have to, but I have to meaning like, if I need to wear this because it looks, like presentable, but the occasion calls for that. But otherwise, I don't. But that was kind of nice. It was like very freeing, and so that was when I really started deciding for myself the things I believe. So I guess that's what I'm trying to portray. Is it was like, you know, it was just kind of me. It helped me that whole phase to look at myself and decide who to be. And I thought, hey, could be anybody I want. Pick, mix and match, and take some, look at like for let's say a philosopher, one person example, maybe Nietzsche, and learn and read, and then I shouldn't agree with everything. There should keep my own mind open and mix and match. So drop the stuff that I might not agree with or find useful, and keep the stuff that makes a lot of sense. That's just kind of how I try and do that. But yeah, you will. Oh, so it's early morning. That's nice. So do you have like dreams are really interesting. Um, I think everybody really has a different kind of experience with them. So you're saying, you're having maybe a period of dreams. Is that kind of like, do you usually remember your dreams in general? And then let's say after a couple weeks, you just maybe don't pay attention, remember it. Then you'll like have a few nights of vivid dreams, or at least, like where you wake up and you remember it, and you're like, okay, that kind of sticks with me. I usually remember my dreams, but so yeah. If anybody has anything to say, otherwise, welcome. And can you hear me? Like, I always got to make sure. Like, I would fucking hate if I was just here trying to chill with you guys and we can't hear each other. I don't need to do that here. But I have my Rider Waite deck. I have other decks. But it's my favorite. I mean, I like how. I think the biggest reason is that I love history, and so there's so much classical Western esoteric symbols largely come from ancient Greek and Roman and Egyptian ideas of the occult, which to them was just a way of life. So I like that, but I mean there's so much in here: Christianity, Buddhist influences, Judaism, where you even have where it says tarot, or you could even tie back to Torah. A lot of people who are pagans really like to we go into the hangman. This kind of probably reminds most pagans here of Odin. Sacrificing his eye to achieve something. So in other words, in the case of Odin, he somehow is like tying himself, manifesting on the physical plane, sacrificing, basically, or you can even think of it as becoming human. And if you're human, you're going to experience pain, which is a sacrifice to the gods, because the gods don't have to be in pain unless they, want to be here. And that would be to gain something, some kind of knowledge, learn something. But that's coming to consciousness is painful, according to Jung. And I like to take a Jungian view of the cards anyway, and I try to, I apply it like if people, it kind of depends on the mood or the client, really. But I mean, I can just do financial spreads and stuff. But yeah, it's just really Odin plucking out his eye or hanging upside down, voluntarily being in pain in order to gain some kind of knowledge. Something that must be done, something learned. So, but there's just so much in here, and you really can put so many spins on it, and I like that. So, it's fun to play around with other cards, though, especially have one that's really similar to this. There's like minor details change, but it's got like the older style drawing. So, I don't know, super cool. And then I'll separate whatever I feel called to separate, just kind of give it that space. Those dreams are really weird. Yeah. Okay. Sun is. Yeah. See, I think I'm working on saying that a lot better. But yeah, so we're talking about dreams in case, you're here and you want to just listen in, because I get it. Do you usually have like weird dreams out of curiosity? And then, like, so you like, is it like where you have a dream and then you wake up like in the middle of the night? Or is it like, I don't know, you just kind of wake up in the morning. It's almost like an alarm clock, but it's this dream that just kind of jolts you awake. And wow, that's a situation, right? So it's like, that is a sacrifice, in relation to your what you have going on here, because you have to sacrifice your time, your energy, especially, and like really put in that effort to protect your energy while you do kind of deal with that person. And, that is a sacrifice. I just hope that you keep making some space for yourself and energy, and just try to keep things civil, probably short, to the point, and hopefully that you can continue to get what you want out of that. Maybe if that person's paying rent, but definitely talk to spirits, and I think they're listening. Sometimes, like when we have emotional period of our life, that is kind of like we really we project our emotions onto the astral plane stuff. So I think that when other beings on the astral plane sense that, then they basically will come through by influencing or interacting with us in dreams to maybe help us resolve, or whatever kind of recurring situation that we're having. Because it's like, maybe it's not so much where you focus on the person, but the theme, maybe, right? Like, it's kind of like a divorce is like a new era, and it's sort of like this rite of passage and a closing of a chapter. So it's like, You know, it's supposed to be that way, but you're still trying to figure out exactly how to make that all happen. So somebody says, "Hail Satan, hail Satan, hail Lucifer." Welcome. I would probably describe myself as a Luciferian magician. So that's my thing. I like the Goetia, Enochian magic, folk magic. Fuck yeah. So I always like, hail Satan, hail Lucifer. It is fun. That will never get old. It just is. It feels good. Um, yeah. It's with dreams. It's interesting too. Where people will say, you know, I think that maybe my house is haunted, or my deceased grandmother's visiting me, and they'll describe some things. And if it just seems like it's confined to the dream, okay, that's one thing. But another idea would be that if there's other things that are paranormal going on, like if you wake up and you're like awake and you open your eyes and you see a spirit, and it's not just like in that haze of between states, they're standing or being by you because they're attaching to your body while you're dreaming. Because when we're asleep, we're not in our bodies. So at least in my case, I have other spirits guide my body from or protect my body from being possessed by wandering spirits who need help, and then I try and deal with them in the astral plane, address them if appropriate. But whether it is said person's grandmother, right? They wake up and there's your grandma, right? And let's just say that really is what that is, or it's something that's really negative. It's attaching to you, and it's drawing energy from you to manifest. So that's what that is. That's why ghosts get in bed with people, sit on beds. People feel that they're getting their hair pulled, hands, somebody puts their arm around them, they're being touched. But you'll find, if we look at ghosts as a phenomenon in a whole, that, that's one of the most, reported things it's self-reported too, where I've had people that all over the years that, I've even seen the indentations for them of like an outline of a body. So I've seen that, and that's because that's just their way of hey, they know where you are because they are attracted to our energy, and our life, basically our life force draws them in, and but that's why I guess what I'm saying is they're most attracted to like beds and sleeping people, and they usually come back like night after night in most cases, unless they're just there to give you a message, because it's like living beings are the best energy for them. They can draw energy out of the air, they can affect draw energy from electronics, from running water. But people are like, the best, most longest lasting energy. It's like eating something really good for yourself that is an energy that will last and not just be like a crash and burn. So, but yeah, that's, as opposed to like seeing ghosts during the day, being the more common phenomena, right? So but that's kind of why. There's a lot of various reasons too. But yeah, if you think about it, tell me what your thoughts are. Let's see. Well, yeah. So basically, in Sun is in your case where it's like you want to get closure, but you want the finances. I think that really, ultimately a good way to you know start the process of closure. Which obviously, if this is something that is coming up to you in dreams, it's a lot on your mind during while you're awake. It's kind of like pulling you towards, hey, we've been putting this off for a while. Let's fully try to form a plan on how to resolve it. And it's like, to you, it should be like, is this person respecting you for the most part? Is there like should the communication be more clear? Because if, you know, if there isn't a basic respect, but you're in this financial hole, maybe just kind of realize that that's what it is. Accept that, because accepting is the first part of all that kind of stuff. I mean, I have fucking been there. I got, well, basically I was an alcoholic for like 10 years. It's a different story, but acceptance is the first step. And maybe there are other options. I don't know. Example would be like, you could sell some items online. Let's just say that you already do that because you do arts and crafts. So if that might be a viable option, but then you'd be able to have your peace, it's time to maybe think about that. Or be very, be like, I want to still do this, but I need to be more clear and direct about boundaries. But either way, there's a push to this resolution, I would definitely say. So, I really wish you all the best and resolving, especially something like that. Yeah. Well, it's really, dreams about loved ones are really something else. Yeah, every once in a while, I will dream about my biological grandfather, and it's very vivid. Kind of like you were saying, I think you described dreams as maybe like a movie, having a movie like quality. So that's a point of interest where um, I've done some videos where I try to describe what it feels like to have psychic abilities, or like it's like when you're like, okay, sit down, psychic, and here is this missing person's jewelry. Tell me about them. What do you think happened? Where do you think they are? So one of the ways I do experience that is it's like a movie, and I could really compare it best to when you're not 100% focused, but let's say you're like, oh, I'm hungry, and then you just kind of imagine a burger, like a cheeseburger, right? Whatever, something to eat, and it's not super vivid in your mind because it's not like where you're like, wow, I need to have this, but you form this idea, and so it kind of looks like a passing up, because for many people, thoughts will generate at least partial imagery. Um, Not all the time, because I mean, there's a whole variance about how humans think. I have that kind of way of thinking anyway, but so it'll be like if I try to focus on somebody's energy, all of a sudden I'll see like I'll be like, it looks like okay, cut to scene. We're in the forest, it's nighttime, and I'm just watching this person walk, right? Maybe they're 20 feet ahead of me, and I can see them going down the trail. It looks like a movie in my periphery. So it's I can maybe focus on it a little bit and get a little bit more detail. But that is one of the ways I would describe how that works. But another way I would kind of explain the astral plane is that it feels so it's if there's really a communication, like a message, it will typically feel more vivid or real than even waking life. because but now there's one of the things that will happen though is there's still the dreamlike aspect where you don't judge things. So the difference between, you know, being awake and dreaming is that like if you're, you know, you're dreaming and you know, somebody knocks on the door and, you know, you open the door and it's just a skeleton, right? It's like you're you know, you're not going to think in your mind in that dream, oh, that's weird. That's not right. That doesn't exist. You react based on how it emotionally, energetically feels. So if it's something that is there to, you know, maybe have a chat, you know, have this message to you, not, you know, is there to comfort you, protect you, you'll feel that way. So you don't question the validity, like the reality of it. But like if you feel repulsed, you'll still just feel scared. But you're either way, you're not analyzing like, oh, the skeleton that stands before me talking to me, that isn't real. Because skeletons can't talk and they can't walk, and that's not real. So that's kind of, that will still be there, even in dreams that have messages that are communication, but they'll additionally, it will be almost like it's like colors are more vivid, stand out, they pop, and it seems to be a little bit more slow as well. You know, because I think that some dreams are just dreams, and it's, you know, when we're traveling in the astral plane, we're asleep, but other times, that when you know, in my opinion, when you're having a communication, then there'll be kind of those differences. But dreams are interesting for that basic reason, is that it's not so much analyzing, is this real? How did I get here? You know, what's going on? Or all of a sudden, maybe you're playing ping pong and you're really good at it. You're not going to be like, hey, I haven't played ping pong in 20 years. It's just, you know, it just exists. It just is. It's a world of not judgment. It's of energy and reaction. So, well, world I'm pretty comfortable kind of moving around in, but everybody does it. So, you know, and in Native Americans in America, they, you know, there's a lot of different beliefs where some different tribes will sleep on their stuff, like on their stomach, so that in the belief that their spirit, their psyche can't escape or leave their body at night. And then they'll, you know, for the fear that they might not be able to get back to their body for some reason. Maybe they, another spirit takes over the body while they're not with their body, and then they won't be able to get back. So there's different beliefs with that, but I mean, it is talked about, and there's, you know, each tribe has like its own version of that. But yeah, I was actually, you know, one of my really good friends from a while ago, a gentleman was telling me, you know, people just tell me what they feel comfortable saying. But I was like, yeah, I think that's how I would describe that. But I don't know. That's how I deal with it, is I have my guides, or some of the deceased that I work with, just kind of watch out for me. So I am giving them energy. I'm giving them access to me, but there's a relationship, and they're not, you know, not going to drain me. And they're also going to prevent, because I'm an empath, so they're going to prevent others from waking me up constantly, you know, spirits from waking me up or taking possession of my body. If something does start to go wrong, I would characterize as, and then like a spirit wants to try to possess my body, I'll get jolted awake, like that. So, and then I have time to change course real quick. my guides will, like, if I'm having a vision, let's see. So yeah, I like, I had a vision where I was seeing a guy in like a movie theater, and he looked like, it was like, how there's rows of movie theaters. It's like he was way, back, so he kind of was for the most part that solid shadow form. But it started to kind of have, form into the details of a human. So, you could tell it was like a younger guy. And I felt like I wanted to kind of look at him closer. And as that happened, there was just sudden, abrupt, evil feeling. And the movie, because that's how I was seeing it, like we were just talking about, it just stopped. It was like being, it's like just I like to do cold water immersion because it stimulates the vagus nerve, and so yeah, it's like, when you first get into ice cold water, like, oh my gosh, it's just an abrupt change. But I mean, in the case of cold water immersion, you mentally kind of prepared for that, so at least a little bit, and I think it's something you get used to in that kind of case. But yeah, it just completely stopped, which is unusual. Most of the time, there isn't a conscious like interruption of my movie kind of thoughts. But if there's something like that, in other words, that spirit was trying to trick me to get close, to draw me in closer, so it could in some way attach to me, harm me, and my guide step in, or other deceased people that I sometimes one guy, he'll be with me until I pass, because that's what he's chosen as his form of penance. But most spirits, I will invite them to stay with me for maybe like, let's say, a year or something like that, period of months, until they're just ready to either move on, or I move them on after they resolve themselves by just kind of being with me. And so, it's just that abruptly stopped, which is pretty unusual, in that case. So yeah, it's just different ways to describe it. But another way that I won't go into like all of it, but it's like sometimes, if I'm touching the object that belonged to a deceased person, and it'll just be like, it's like me. So it's like all of a sudden I could feel like I'm walking around, along, and I'm really anxious. Let's say someone was, stalked in the woods and murdered or something. I'll feel like, oh, I'm being watched. I'm really freaked out. But in the astral plane, that is just me. So it's like how you imagine yourself, getting ready to eat or something, where it's maybe not so much visual, but then that tends to be like moments of death, where I will experience it as me. A good example would be like I've worked with spirits where this one guy, he passed in an avalanche. So, I had some of those movie projector thoughts, and then all of a sudden it was like I'm looking at, I know I'm gonna die, like in like a second, experiencing it as that person. But it's like his thoughts were like, this is the most highest form of achievement I'll ever have, and the most awesome, I'm witnessing nature take me. Like that was like what he felt with every part of him in his last moments. And it was it's just it's a lot, it's breathtaking and stuff like that. But so it's really personal, spirits share that with people, but it's not like watching a movie in that case. It's like it feels like it's happening to me, at least for a moment. That's why I do a lot of grounding, though, so that I can ground the deceased and myself. So, we're not going to be stuck in that death moment so much. So yeah, Sun is, let's see, you were talking about, you were basically in the flat, which is, you know, in America we call them apartments, but was it like a, you know, a haunting kind of scenario, or just somebody who's like attached to you? So that's totally interesting. Oh yeah, spirits turning the stove on. That's not good. You know what I mean? Like, it really, with paranormal activity, it really depends on, for the most part, how it feels to you. When spirits are around, there will invariably be some kind of manifestation, whether it's one knock on a wall that you could think, hey, you know, somebody next door banged in the wall, whatever. And if you analyze it, you'll come up with some kind of alternative explanation. Or, you know, I like it. One I describe is it sounds like movement in the other room, but there's, you know, everybody else is asleep and there's nobody out there. But it's not, doesn't feel negative to me. It's just, but there's a change. There's a manifestation in the physical plane. But when they do things that are dangerous, that's when it's time to analyze it and get concerned, because they, you know, people will pass some really aggressive stuff off, and I'm like, you know, I guess what I'm saying is, like, an unattended stove that's on is not a good situation, and you can only imagine what that spirit's intention for you would maybe be. And I'd also be concerned that that spirit might be attached to you, or trying to attach to you. And there could be so many different things too. It's not always that, you know, you've done something wrong. They can just be attracted to your energy. Like example would be like a guy who he, you know, in this case, he killed himself because his girlfriend got married to another guy abruptly. So he was basically scratching this woman and terrorizing her, and it's pretty, you know, violent stuff, but just, you know, all the classical stuff, never letting her rest. But, you know, she was getting scratched and stuff like that. And and, you know, that was his girlfriend. And it just kind of was that they were sort of similar in appearance in a general way, but also there was that personality, like the, you know, just very happy, you know, but at the same time feminine and comforting. So that, to him, that was his girlfriend. That, you know, it wasn't like he saw, you know, met this woman who moved into his house and was like, oh, you know, I hate you for no reason, and I'm gonna, you know, attach to you like that. That's what, you know, part of what I mean. That's what, in his case, it tied, you know, he's still tied here to his pain and anger, rage. So, the spirit will attempt to process. It will be driven to process things, attempt to, and that's kind of how that goes. So yeah, there's, you know, there's a range of why spirits like that. Will, what's going on? Glad you could make it. Allergies are the best, but hey. Yeah, request a topic. Well, it's great to see you here. I know we've been Will and I, we've emailed for a while, a couple of years, and I always like, you know, I was like, hey, you know, the different mythologies and legends associated with webs, right? And the spiritual connection. So, you know, it's really cool. It's really nice to basically be friends with some of you, and I enjoy it. Yeah, you know, I mean, yeah, it sounds like you definitely, Sinez, you have you have gifts and abilities. So I mean, that's typically why, you know, when people say they remember their dreams a lot, or they have a lot of different interactions with spirits, it's typically because, you know, the spirits are drawn towards your gifts, and they need, you know, they're going to be most strongly drawn towards people who can perceive them in some way, whether that's see them, feel them, they're coming for you because they need help. They need resolution. So, it's part of what we do, right? We, I guess, in our own time and own way, find the space to help. And I think that's really special. I mean, it was a long road to, learning how to balance my abilities with real life and my sanity as well. Basically, that's the best way to describe it. So if I ever, like, somebody asked, I mean, hey, I'll take most questions. Have I ever considered summoning like a really negative person from history? Okay. No. I really I wouldn't want to invite that, to be near me or, process that. But I really wouldn't have a reason to. If anything, I would get, let's say that there were spirits who were some way affected by World War II. They would, in my kind of like feelings, explain to me how that had to do with stuff, so I could catch, how did they, their feelings about Adolf Hitler, for example. But I wouldn't just want to, I wouldn't just want to be like, okay, I'm going to channel Adolf Hitler now. And I just wouldn't have a reason to do that. So not an interest. I have, I've had my fair share of attachments from, negative entities and stuff. And that was definitely before I learned how to balance my abilities and protect my space, say no to things like that. Yeah. Let's see. So we're going with Sunnis says, that perhaps the person, the spirit that she's talking about was attached to the flat. There's a lot of spirits that are just attached to the area that they, the home, that they died in. And I think that it just is, those are typically, where they're just, the very last part of their lives before they died really focuses on them thinking really hard in that living space. And that's why they're drawn to that. So when like a spirit stays and people move in and people move out, for the most part, a good way to think of it is, how we're like, oh, I hear knocking. I'm being haunted. The water's turning off and on. The cabinets are opening and closing. I'm freaking out. It's a ghost. They do pretty often in that case, in a property case, they experience us as ghosts. And I know there's some movies out there that are like kind of focus on that subject. So it's not exactly where they're like, oh, they see everything that we're doing as like if a living person is cooking a meal, they're not going to watch, sit there and watch the frying pan, go to town making up your meal, right? But they'll be disturbed by, or it basically, you could compare it to being woken up by the energy shift. Well, I'm gonna tuck my dog in here so he can kind of chill out a little bit. He just kind of a restless guy sometimes. But so yeah, I basically would say they're just disturbed or awakened by the presence of the living, and but they're so focused on whatever they're trying to resolve that most of the time it's just that they feel like they're being bothered. Like if you wanted to be alone in your bedroom and you wanted to think, but yet your mom was like gonna just be in there, stand there, it would kind of feel like you couldn't really access your deep thoughts and emotions. And you need a private moment. So that's kind of how they experience that. But so they have like that limited perception because they're so focused on typically I've also met sorry about my allergies, everybody, but I met spirits where they had some type of dementia when they passed, and then they're super confused about why why living people are in their space. So they'll go and open all the cabinets and make noise and do some stuff like, make some unpleasant noises even. I've had clients and, seeing ghosts will show me, spirits will typically sometimes show me what they do to living people, which ranges from the funny to the insane to just dark, evil. But it'll be like, let's see, an example would be like, let's say there's a woman spirit and she has dementia. So it's like when she's in the, the kitchen in her mind cooking, and she hears and mostly feels the running water of a shower. And she goes down the hall, is attracted to that change in energy. It's like, she'll show me like, why is this happening? Get out. How can I scare this person? So I saw this woman, she was like, like almost like an animal. You imagine a bear making an angry face. Like, like, how can I, because, and just and then it's like, I could feel her emotions of frustration that she can't scare this person, right? They can't get them to leave because she doesn't understand that, they can't see her. So, but the living people are experiencing that negative, that energy. So, I'll be like, oh, this isn't, and people will be like, oh no, there's a lady who haunts us, but she's really nice. And I'll be like, tell me why you think that. And then I'll tell you what I, think. Thoughts on Solomonic magic. So I do a lot of Goetia path working. President Marvis of the Goetia is like one of my patron spirits that I felt called to working with for many years. I love drawing sigils, ritual magic. So I love to channel those spirits and basically have relationships with them. I treat them like gods, where it's about offerings, relationships, kind of like, with spirits, just acknowledging. And it's like when you offer flowers at a cemetery, it's not so much like a literal flower that they're benefiting from as the energy and the physical object and the act of, here is this something I have for you, and they're able to consume that and feel energy and relief. So do you believe some spirits share the same name as other spirits throughout time? Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Like in ancient Egypt, we have the goddess Sekhmet, who's like a lion goddess of healing and disease. So, of course, that's basically interesting because, later on we think of it as Eros and Thanatos, but it's the life and death force. So, when we die, is life and death really separate, or health and disease? If we never got sick, we wouldn't be healthy. If we didn't if our immune system didn't experience challenges, I mean, which we don't need to provide it with additional ones in our society, and unfortunately all the kinds of modified foods, and then you're just being around other people's germs. He's got plenty of practice, but that's the idea, is that it's not completely as separate as it might appear. So yeah, you probably can hear my kids coughing from allergies, so we'll see. If I have to go because I'm needed, I will, but that's what that is. So I've done all I can stuff on that. So I think that Sekhmet and like President Marvis are basically incarnations of the same spirit, because I think that ultimately it's we all are manifestations of consciousness, the universe needing to experience itself through the nervous system, as an individual. But that's basically that's why we, as humans, as time goes on, humans see more colors. When the Bible was written, the humans only saw in, I don't know, something like 50 colors. Now we see in hundreds. So our nervous system is evolving, and that is what consciousness is trying to achieve. So yeah, we when people have this, when people invent things at the exact same time, that's because they're tapping into that same energy exactly. And yeah, to me, it's just like it's applies to that culture, those people, their beliefs. Hippocrates of ancient Greece he's just a human manifestation of President Marvis and the goddess Sekhmet. So basically, yeah. You have a really great weekend. Thanks for stopping by and chatting. I really appreciate you, having a conversation with me, and enjoy your company. I love all the bats and black hearts. So peace out, and email me if you ever want to talk. I'm here. So yeah, I guess we'll go kind of on some of Will's thoughts here. Okay. So I don't know. Maybe you have some different thoughts that they're just different. But I mean, yeah, in a way we're different, because we're all a little bit different. But when things are so strikingly similar, I think that it is just because it's the universe is like manifesting that and drawing that out into that, in different people, humans expressing it. Well, I guess the last thing I'll say on that interesting topic is that I explained it to somebody this way. Human, we we as people, we feel angry, right? You have the emotion of anger, but you didn't create anger. You didn't invent it. Anger is, you are being used so that emotions like anger can express themselves, manifest themselves. Because us being human is, like to the ancient Greeks and stuff, that, being mortal is the highest achievement. So, consciousness, the gods, the universe needs to experience emotions and needs to have a body. So that's what we do. That's what we are. And it's kind of literal way to think about it, but hey, it's pretty literal. So, oh my gosh. Yeah, my kids are just like, we got the humidifier on and everything, but we even got the best allergy medicine. Kind of where my one kid has a problem blowing their nose. So we do that thing where I just try to open their nose. I've got salt water and all the other stuff, eucalyptus oil, but it's just kind of that's kind of a deal. So, but just just kind of explain it to you. But yeah, I don't know. I'll just stay on in case they like. But sleep might be the best thing, unless I actually get called. Sure. Do I believe drugs are a shortcut to psychic abilities? I haven't tried any drugs, by the way. Just curious. Well, we are drugs. DMT is something we naturally produce. It's just not a psychedelic trip because, that's a kind of amount dependent. So, we are drug. We don't. Salvador Dali is kind of famous for that quote. I don't do drugs. I am drugs. So that's really true. All serotonin and dopamine and all, those other different, neurotransmitters and receptors they're already within us. We're just trying to, fucking influence them so that we can experience their effects. I don't, for the most part, no. I don't think that it's like a shortcut to psychic abilities, because I think that, ultimately it's about what a person is trying to achieve, or they're going through. So if you're just trying to disassociate and you do like LSD, are you going to become psychic and stuff now? Probably not, because it's just going to give you what you're looking for, which is disassociation, a way to not be experiencing, whatever you're running away from in your life. But in the case of like psychedelics, there's maybe a little bit more room for that, just because I think people are so, it's like kind of culturally programmed where it's like, this is the way that reality is. And that's kind of all they perceive. Sensory and, it's just kind of, that's the way it is. And then one day a person, then all of a sudden they just drop some acid and colors will seem brighter because maybe they had like some depression, or it's just a whole new experience. So to them, it's like, they're like, wow, I think I was a little depressed because I just never realized how beautiful the flowers are and vibrant. And if they take that and they really, not think about it just for the trip, but they continue to think that can really open up some healing and at least expose that person to, I'm not even perceiving the beauty of reality, there's so much more out there. And then generally, there'll be a broader opening in the senses. So a person might become more tolerant, because when we open our senses, a lot of that has to do with, we're realizing that all of our other fellow beings are, all part of us, in this way. So there's sometimes a patience and a empathy that might not have been there. So, in like that case, but, I wouldn't want to say like, hey, I think you should, a person should do that as a way to get to psychic abilities, because I think that, a lot of times that's not, ultimately going to work. The biggest thing is that, if you wanted to be like work on abilities, maybe do some cleansing or grounding, because then the pineal gland and the body can detox a little bit, and that will also automatically open up your perception a little bit more, because basically if your glands in your body, like your pineal gland, and they're all clogged up, which is something that has a lot to do with hormones and perception, that will really help a lot. So I think that would help way more than psychedelics. But I think I've talked about this briefly before, but there's exceptions to most rules. And it was really interesting. So this guy, this mom was like, okay, my kid we're having paranormal activity, but he's withdrawing and he spends more of his time in his room. And she like took his, phone away, or she would take it away at night. So like he had to turn it into his mom at bedtime. And, she's like, but he still just wants to be alone. Well, basically I was like talking to him, and he was just like, I did some acid. I've done it before, but this time I dropped some acid, and there was a guy who all of a sudden was in my closet, and he was like, he's like, oh, he was trying to talk to me, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. And he was in like a uniform, and he looked, because this kid had never experienced. I was, because I was like, did you experience vivid dreams? Have you ever seen ghosts? Do you have paranormal experience? It's like, no. Okay. Somebody else on a paranormal group that I was doing work with, it turned out that this guy who was in the military, he hung himself in that closet. And we were like, that was one of those like shocking moments, Hold on. Okay, dog. So anyway, he was like, we were like, oh my gosh. So we told his mom in private that, that kind of that went on, and we followed up with them, but I guess that basically this kid ended up just sort of moving on. He didn't like have any further problems or experiences. So I think that in that case, it was like the acid interacted with his immune system, his emotions that day, and he was able to perceive that. And so we did a cleansing, and we moved that gentleman's spirit on because he was there. So in other words, he was the spirit was already there, but this family and this kid in particular, they didn't experience that because, most of humanity, they don't perceive it. They just go about their day and, cohabitate with spirits. But, this guy was there thinking about his life and in some ways reliving his death and, but mostly his time in the military. And he really just didn't know how to move on. And so, this kid dropped some acid. He saw this this deceased guy, and he was already there. This kid just couldn't, he just didn't perceive him. And it was just a moment, though. But yeah, I can think, you could almost compare this to, you could compare this really to trauma, like people who, let's say they get in a car accident and maybe they have a head injury. Or just, this really impacts them. They're very injured or traumatized. They might start, we're having experiences along those lines where they're like, they all of a sudden they're like, hey, I'm having these really vivid dreams. And I've never remembered my dreams or had vivid dreams. And that just is, now that's a new ability for them, It changed their perception. It's just interesting ideas. But illness, trauma, definitely the potential for drugs, the best chance would be like psychedelic. But even so, it's just depends on the situation and mostly what deep down why the person is doing it. So those things can open people up. Certainly, if you just like people, I've seen many people over the years who just start playing with Ouija boards. They want it. Typically, people they want to be involved in the occult because they want a girlfriend. They want a lot of money. They want drugs. They want something. It's like it's like I want quick cash fast. And so they're like, who would I get shit from? Satan. I'm gonna summon Satan through the Ouija board, right? And a lot of times nothing happens other than, nothing really comes of that. and they typically get bored and move on. But that can kind of open some doors, because our minds are a huge part of this. And, then they might have more to deal with them, because they're not going to get, not going to find themselves rich all of a sudden. They're going to find themselves with spirits needing or wanting to use them for various different reasons. Whatever they've attracted, they've opened a door, things are going to come through. And, so yeah, I've never ever seen somebody who just all of a sudden they start getting fame and wealth by just summoning Satan. And a big part of that is that they're not interested in, the spiritual side of dark magic. And that's very dangerous for people to just kind of like try out. In my opinions, obviously. So, yeah, I don't recommend. I'm not here to legally advise anybody here. Yeah, aspects call forth the essence. Yeah, it's like we're just all aspects of nature. Sleep and food deprivation are the most powerful hallucinogens on Earth. Definitely, food for thought. Native Americans, they will, they'll go for, days without sleeping during ceremonies. And typically that's because, the ceremonies will last a few days. But, oh my God. Yeah, I'm going to stay on like 10 more minutes, and then I'll have to go kind of like assist, or at least maybe probably wake one of my kids up and try to help them with their cough. But I know it sounds terrible, but it's just that there's just points where you can't do anything. But yeah, you so they don't sleep. So let's say the ceremony lasts 2 or 3 days, and they just the whole time they're moving around, maybe dancing. They'll put on their masks, and some of them will become the embodiment of certain spirits. And, part of that is the sleep deprivation. And I think that, pushing ourselves to extremes sometimes, can open things up, similar to trauma or drugs. It's just you're altering your neurotransmitters to experience maybe what you normally don't. And they're using, so they're not all, it's religious, tied to that spirituality. Because when the body, in the case of, sleep deprivation, it's, I think, really a sense of, one loses the sense of, what's the difference between being awake and asleep so much. And that's what they're going for, because in between sleep and being awake is kind of like, it's like dreams. It's like in ancient Greece, we have the myth of sleep and death, and basically hypnosis or altered states of consciousness being, the triplets of the night. And, that's what's in between. So when we spiritually seek out the middle of those states, it's, you're still awake because your, conscious body is perceiving, but you're also kind of in the spiritual realm because of what you're undergoing in those kinds of extremes. So spirits typically will think of that as a sacrifice. Like, let's say you do a fast for, and you dedicate it to spirit. You're cleansing yourself, and by doing that in honor of a spirit, they're able to attach to you for this time, and that cleanse also will cleanse or uplift them as well. So, but of course it's very hard on, us humans, and, that's why they take it that way. Yeah, I've done well, I like to do intermittent fasting sometimes in different ways, but I'll go like most of it are 3 days, but I'll go 1 or 2 days sometimes without eating at all, and I'll just be doing water, lemon water, apple cider vinegar, and that just kind of helps your body have a break from processing sugar and stuff. But when your body has that break from constantly, typically we eat food all the time, and it's hard on the human body. It's a lot of work. Then things like the immune system get boosted, and then your memory and all those other things in turn, because it's just this really, ancient, man went days, weeks without eating, and they were just basically fine. I mean, it shouldn't be like something you want to, have be your norm, but eating every single day, in my opinion, is not normal either. Like, all the time. I think that the body needs a break. And then there's that whole immune system cleanup that can happen. And that does help keep your perceptions sharp. I mean, helps you be less depressed and whatever, because your body's not like trying to do the human body is like a computer, is like a car, right? It needs maintenance. Specific chemical and electrical things, are going to affect that. And if it'd be like if you just left your computer on all the time, but you never shut it off, and you just, I mean, your computer wouldn't last as long. Where if you shut it off every night and you give it that break, it probably, last a lot longer, we could safely say. Do I believe colors have flavors? Yeah, in my case, naturally grown fruits and vegetables. Yeah, I think that, well, I basically, I have synesthesia, so I have, my thoughts are very full of imagery anyway, and then I have like a lot of food sensitivities, and kind of, I guess you could describe me as a little bit autistic, Aspergery, I think as a resulting of that, because, when people do psychedelic drugs, they'll have a blending of their senses typically, where it's like, they'll be hearing music and then they start to see the colors, right? So they're seeing what they're hearing. And to me, that is, my normal. It's kind of like another background thing that's going on. So I don't think that that's, and it's not in the fruit, or doesn't naturally feel that way to everybody or whatever. That's just the way that my nervous system perceives things. So it's pretty vivid, and as you can imagine, it could be overwhelming, but also pretty unique, even fun at times. Yellow and green things are generally sour and bitter. Yeah, even though things like that are, yellow and green things that are bitter, they're typically good for the liver, kidney, and detox. And usually, have like a range of B vitamins, but also minerals, because plants, obviously, they're growing in the earth, and they also, I mean, living things, in order to survive, need minerals. They help regulate our electrical impulses and the way our body communicates. So we need that kind of stuff. I really like dandelion greens, but I've also just always been like attracted. I love nature and stuff. I'm kind of like that, a hippie in that regard. And so even though it's sour and bitter, I don't mind it. A lot of people seek to change that and stuff, but I just am like, I think maybe I'm just attracted to what it is at its essence, which is life-giving nutrients, which it's a great source of energy. So that will last a long time, benefit the immune system. We get those trace amounts of minerals in things like dandelion greens. And I mean, we, at least in our modern times, we don't always get those kinds of things from the grocery store. it is something that comes from nature, because nature provides everything. If we look, we'll find. And yeah, so lots of interest. I love natural medicine. Could go on and on, huh? Have you ever thought about something and it manifests through a commercial or advertisement online? Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's kind of more in those kinds of ways. I would say I've experienced synchronicity where I'm like, oh, I maybe whatever. I see scrolling on Facebook or something like that, and I see a vintage picture of James Dean, who was the American race car kind of masculine driver poster guy of the 1950s. And then whatever, a couple hours later, my friend who's really into cars just happens to call me, text me, stop by. Those kinds of things. Yeah, I've experienced them a lot. I don't. I mean, unless I feel like I should pay super attention to it, I usually don't. Otherwise, I would drive myself kind of nuts because I have I could kind of choose which level of consciousness to pay attention to, and I definitely still have to be like an exhausted parent and in real life a lot, so I can't be like, what the fuck is the meaning of all this and how does it connect? But I can if I if I again am drawn to that same scenario. So let's say I visit my friend visits, they leave, and I continue to keep then I go to an antique shop and then I've seen vintage toy cars, but it's like pay attention, then I'm going to be like, okay. And then I'll just usually have an intuitive insight about why. Yeah, if I'm driven to pay attention to it more. Yeah, the internet. So my friend Will here is talking about how the internet algorithm has some type of link to our brains. The internet is an extension of our senses. Our friends, our family, and spirits. I mean, why people like myself choose to be around the spirits of the deceased is that they're an extension of our senses. And that back in the day, I mean, talk about my last life, but whatever. But in the 1800s stuff, dogs and cats. I mean, they kind of thought of them in our terms, like let's dress them up, and we kind of assign them those human-like qualities. But they were there for the to be an extension of your senses. So if your cat starts acting different, why? What's it? What is different? So I mean, they wouldn't like think it all out like I am right now. But it would just be the moment your cat acts different, you would be paying attention and be what is different in my environment. Your cat is an extension of your senses, just in the way the internet is as well. It's another tool, like where we can just all, if you have a thought, like one of the things I like about the internet is like if I'm like, oh, why is this like this? I could just jump on and figure that out, and maybe I agree with it, maybe I don't. But it's information I now I kind of, have. And then somehow later I'll be able to integrate that. That's my, it's an extension of that. I think that like in ancient times with people, like you talk about like a man and a woman who are together for many years. It's kind of like they're like two halves of a whole mind. So maybe the woman is more of an intuitive thinker and the man is more of a like, sensory type of hunter. So, when they're together, they're able to really, thrive off of each other, and they use each other. So, like in modern example would be like, You know your girlfriend is good at English. You're going to college, so you write your paper. And then you're like, hey, Sally, you know, will you check my essay? Because you know, I mean, you're going to put her mind to your use. But it just, more primitive man would be like, doing that in terms of survival. So again, an extension of the senses. When spirits are around you and you have a relationship with them, they will draw your attention to things. So like when I go to cemeteries, I will say, hey, direct me to where I need to go. I'll hear a noise, just have a feeling. But it's something that's still sensory. So it's just it's a direction of the senses. And I think that is why peasant folks and witchcraft people and all that kind of stuff do have relationships with the dead, not just for to be different or to just be outside of the societal norms, but to experience another being's perspective is to also experience their sensory input as well. And that's kind of cool. But I a really cool idea that I would like to put out here is that people used to sleep grounded. So obviously we didn't have, because our carpet insulates us in our houses from the earth, so we're not getting electrons, we're not grounded. I mean, you have all of our outlets, they have have that grounding. It's like the you got your outlet, you plug it in, and underneath it, that circle that goes to the the grounding wire and stuff. But we don't experience just being grounded all the time like that. But I people when in the 1800s who just didn't have plastic shoes, plastic houses, and carpets, when something it's kind of like, why weren't there a bunch of burglaries back then? There were, I mean, Stagecoach and stuff, but there wasn't a whole lot of people breaking into private residences. That's because people would go to sleep, very seldom had trouble sleeping. But when something was off, I mean, they would, their senses were sharp and tied to the earth because they're grounded. So they're still processing that sensory information, even though they're asleep. And they would wake up and prevent such an occurrence from, threatening them, right? I personally remember, that I had this dream of my last life so many times about this cat that I used to have. It took me so many years to kind of try to put together why I think I would, remember those things. But it's like, that being an extension of the senses, but also like I was not in pain. I didn't have dementia. I lived to be almost 100 years old. Why? I was always grounded. And it was, if you're interested in the whole idea of grounding, look up Clint Ober. He had a really cool spiritual journey through all this. He had a lot to do with the invention and real practical use of modern day cable. It's like, the installation of people like watch cable. So you'd probably really enjoy that if you like hearing me talk. But that's what that does. So yeah, people's circadian rhythms be totally in tune with the earth, and so their senses also would be very sharp. Now, so you're in a house and you're insulated, for example, and someone, you're asleep, and someone is, they're trying to break into a window on the other side of the house. There's a really good chance that might not wake you up because you're not tied to your senses, you're not grounded. So then you have trouble sleeping, and we do sleep as people like that, then we don't naturally wake up when there are these disturbances because we're so exhausted that it's like this fake exhaustion sleep, So I really do make, trying to make time to be grounded pretty important, because it's in a whole electrical system, and we as humans, well, anything living needs electrons, minerals. So yeah, it's a cool idea. But the internet, our pets, our family, friends, it is an extension of our senses. And if you really want to be better in tune with your senses, if you have terrible problems sleeping, even if you have pain, definitely, try grounding, because it increase, the biggest thing it does is it increases circulation, and then it's just a whole system. It promotes, it's like cold water immersion. It just puts the body into rest and digest mode, and the parasympathetic nervous system is stimulated, and that's that whole, the body relaxes and it stops producing, any kind of adrenaline types of responses, and just relaxes. And then there's the healing and the openness, and being tied to what's going on exactly. So then you start paying attention. Like when you relax, you're able to a little bit pay attention more to what's going on individually. Like if you're really stressed, hey, try it out. Interview, pay attention to people who are experiencing stress. They really won't so much pay as much attention to their environment around them, and notice differences. Well, when you relax, you kind of will. You'll be like, oh, I didn't notice this painting on my wall is a little bit tilted. I'm going to fix that. It's because you're relaxed enough to kind of take in the environment. So even though I like the spiritual stuff, I'm also interested in some, real world solutions. And I'm also an outdoors lady, hiker, camper, and I like to figure that kind of stuff out. But I had so many dreams about my last life, and about there's different periods of time, and it's like I was never in pain. It's like so vivid and detailed. For a long time, I focused on the trauma of that, but I just started, as I got older, I was like, that's weird. I didn't have dementia. I was like, so I was really old. I was like, oh, I must have been in a lot of pain. That must have sucked. No. And it's also like I lost, a lot of people, but really young in my life as well. And people will be like, oh, that's such a shame. Like, when we look at people who have terrible losses, they should have just, in mercy, should have passed away as well. And it's like, that just, I've had dreams where I'm like, that makes me, that makes me so mad, because I am just, this is life, and life is not something that I can understand. That it doesn't apply. Like I could understand not wanting to have to be like, this is life. And so it's like, I just I'm just interested in my natural kind of responses, where my mind kind of either I'm dreaming, or my mind is very relaxed. And then I just kind of, it's like having memories now. Like let's say you start remembering, 10 years ago or something, and you think of something. That's how I remember my last life. But I was like, as time got on, because I would be like, why am I remembering this over and over again? But I guess maybe I'm a little bit of an idiot, and it just took me like 500 times to think of it and be like, that, okay, maybe this is because, modern day life is different. How much have things changed in, since the 1800s and whatever. I play with it and say, okay, I'm going to take reincarnation, my last life memories, is for 100% real. So what is going on? Why would I be, having these lines of thoughts and memories? What is the purpose? There's purpose. Okay. And I'm giving it the purpose by looking into it, I'll have to go in a few minutes. So red things are often spicy. Yeah. You know what? I like how there is that kind of variance in like how we kind of perceive things. Like it's pink, pink is like, oh, it's sweet. Definitely wouldn't want to always go by that, but it's just cool how things can sort of have a feel or a vibe to them. And, I guess my advice would be, hey, just feel that. What does it feel like to you? Let's see. Have you ever thought about something and it manifests through a commercial or advertisement? Oh, yeah, I talked about that. So yeah, that's kind of how I'll if I think about it more than a couple of times, then I will, I'll direct more attention to it. Does time exist in the fourth dimension? And, I really enjoyed Will and Saniz. I enjoyed all, you guys' ideas here. Does time exist? Okay, so let me explain the best way I can explain time in different dimensions. We're here in this physical reality, but when I do psychic work, and I'm in other words, I'm trying to perceive another person, or God or animal, whatever. There's a whole range. So they're like, okay, let's say people want to know, what happened to the deceased, where are they, all that kind of stuff. It's like in 1 second, I can gather, a lot of information. So it's like I can come back and tell you what their personality was like, general appearance. I'm pretty good with those types of things, especially what season it was when they went missing. And it'd be like, okay, you can say, hey, this guy's name was Ben and he died. Here's his watch. And then, I put it in my hand and I'll be like, okay, so this is exactly what he looked like. And I see him doing this for a living. And here's where he was. And, such descriptions. The seasons, maybe some general distinguishing things like, could be like their, tattoos or an object they're focusing on. So then we go into all that. But that just took me 1 second, right? It's because like in these other dimensions that are at a higher frequency, time goes by faster. Or it almost really doesn't exist so much. It's infinite. So because we are part of that infinity, when I basically for half a second will suspend my attention to what's going on here in the physical plane, and then focus on the feel of that object, and then the information comes in, but it's really fast. And so then I try and break it down and sometimes look at it a little bit more closely then I have to articulate it into words, which is going to proceed to take me 20, 30 minutes, right? So there's a difference in time like that. And it's just, it's super fast. So that's kind of why with spirits, when people who've described, and I've heard it too as well, when people hear spirits talking, a lot of times they won't be able to hear or make out what they're saying. It's because they talk what they're doing is at a rate faster than us. They're not tied to the earth. So it's such a, higher frequency. So, and another example, and then I'm going to, like I said, I'll head out pretty soon, but, when people will say, in experiences where they'll say, this person is missing, do you think they're still alive? When I tap into that, if I get a lot of information really fast, then then I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to call this as deceased, because in the spiritual planes, things are just fast. And so that's kind of why spirits are attracted, because they need to have they need to slow some stuff down and be attracted to living people, trees, animals, so they can process, stuff, because that's honestly why consciousness has made us have a body, so that it can, have this slower relation to time. But if I tap into that person's energy and maybe I only get I'm some feelings, and then maybe can, get some information about their appearance, it'll typically, to me, feel like maybe 4 or 5 seconds as opposed to 1 second. or 1 second, it'll be less information, like that's detailed. And then I can kind of, maybe, go from there and get more information when I go back into that. But when I try to, probe living people like that, which is basically I just try to attach their consciousness just temporarily. Living people, they're in this slower time, which is reality. So that information, the feedback takes a little bit longer. I don't always experience living people. Like, I'm not like, you're walking down the street and I'm going to, figure out I'm like, okay, this person just passed me. I'm going to just feel their consciousness and be like, what are they thinking about deeply? Because I would be insane. So that's part of my whole balance here, but I don't entirely block that. Typically it'll just be like, if somebody's in a similar mood to me, or there's just a energetic kind of connection, I will, somebody would walk by me, let's say, and I'll just, in my mind, it will be like, I'll hear my thoughts. Like, they'll be like, this person walked by and I'm like, oh, their grandma just died and they just went to get, Mexican food because that was one of their favorite places to go together. And my connection to that might be, I was wondering what to get for dinner. Bye, guys.